Everyone, I'm sitting down today with Greg Vernovage. He works with International Mountain Guides and was actually a part of this new documentary coming out called Accidental Climber, the story of Jim Geiger, a gentleman who actually was looking to be the oldest American to climb Everest and one of the first, I believe the first great grandfather to attempt it. Some events ended up occurring, which you'll see in the documentary, that prevented his summit attempt, but it's good to talk to you right now, Greg.
Nice to meet you, and good to talk to you too.
So, how did your passion for mountaineering begin? For me, I had a friend that had a mountain pretty much in his backyard, Mount Sopris, over in Basalt, Colorado, and he was like, "Hey, let's go attempt this." And so I trained for like 3 months, and then we went, and then it just became I just became hooked. It became an absolute obsessive passion for me. How did all this get started for you? How did you start mountaineering?
Very similar story. I played sports when I was younger, and in the off season, I had to do something to stay in shape. And A friend of mine said, "Hey, you should try rock climbing." And so we got out there and we started rock climbing. I'll never forget my very first rappel. It only took me about 15 minutes to go over the edge. And I like quadruple check times 10 all of my gear to make sure things were going to happen correctly. Got into rock climbing, loved that. And then another friend said, "Hey, this is Southern California." He said, "Hey, I want to climb Mount Whitney, and would you be interested in going?" And I said, "Hey, what's Mount Whitney?" And then I said, "Sure. What do I have to do to go?" And he said, "You got to be in the best physical shape of your life." And, again, I was an athlete, and I thought, okay, well, clearly you think I'm dog meat right now. So I trained my butt off to go and climb Mount Whitney, and had an absolutely fantastic trip, got to the summit, and that was it. I was hooked on mountains, and I still like rock climbing, but Mount Whitney. And then, okay, what's taller? What can I do next? What can I do next? And then transition from climbing, and I was also coaching, and those two things then found me guiding, which is climbing, coaching, and being around people of like minds, all there for the right reasons and having a good time. So it's a dream job. It truly is, and I'm loving every day I get to be in the mountains with people.
Not gonna lie, I'm a little bit jealous of what you get to do on a daily basis. One of the things, it's funny you're saying going to sports. I love taking people that, for example, play football because they think they're pretty well conditioned. I'm like, no, this is something completely different, because you're not only challenging yourself physically, but you're really going to dive in mentally, like see where that limit is. One of the examples I like to give is like David Goggins. He talks about like that 40% wall, to where most people only go, to their 40% capacity. But once you realize you can just go past that, the thing about mountaineering for me is it resonates in every single part of my life. So it's not just my physical conditioning, but it's how I spend time with family, how I get work done. It gives me a lot more confidence to be able to put myself in scenarios that I necessarily wouldn't be in. Being able to get over like fear, for example, and being able to control fear. And then just a spiritual experience as well. So being able to share that with people and being able to, like, in a way, enlighten them, I guess, in a way with nature is what I think is really beautiful about mountaineering myself.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. The bigger and the longer the trip, the more it's going to test you. And I say on any big expedition around the world, I call it three pillars. And the three pillars are, the first one's obvious, which is the physical. You got to be in good physical shape to climb mountains. The next one is mental. You have to, when you're on a Mount Everest expedition for 60 plus days, Not every single one of those 60 plus days is a great day, and it's going to test you mentally. And then there's the emotional. The third pillar is the emotional aspect, which you again mentioned. Friends and family are at home and they're pulling for you, but you miss them, they miss you. If you have kids, so, and then on Everest, I tell people, as you start seeing the summit, that's not the time to start crying. And excitement, because you still got a lot of work to do. Get to the summit, get back down, and then we're gonna hug and celebrate, and then we'll be emotional. But yeah, that emotional aspect, it'll test you. Mount Everest is going to test all three of those at one given time, every single climber.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. I just did a climb. It was a small one, just Quandary Peak. But even something that as like that's considered, like a beginner type climb. And even though I've done it before, just the beauty itself. Like I did find myself, I'm a grown man, and I did find myself weeping just like in the experience, like on the way up. Like it's beautiful. But like he said, getting to the top is only halfway, and like majority of the risk is actually coming down due to fatigue. So
yeah, well, it's Ed Viesters who said that, and he's absolutely right. Getting to the summit is only half the trip. We're going for round trips here.
Yeah, exactly. So how did you get involved with Jim Geiger? How did this whole accidental climber and all this come together? Did you know him before the Everest expedition through IMG? Had y'all climbed before? What was y'all's previous experience?
Oh, yeah. I've known Jim for years and years. And how I met Jim was years ago on Mount Rainier. He had come out to Mount Rainier to climb, and he was also preparing because he wanted to attempt the tallest peak in North America, which is Denali. And so he came out to Mount Rainier, which is the best testing ground, in my opinion, for any mountain around the world, depending on what mountain you want to go. I'll tell you what time of year to climb Mount Rainier. And so he came out to Mount Rainier, and we climbed, and he tested gear, and we said, okay, now what? And years ago, then we went to Denali. And oh man, Jim, he puts a smile on my face every time I get to talk about him. He's just such a personable and great guy. We're on Denali, and Denali's a huge test, all those three things, and they test you. And we worked hard, and Jim had a great team, and we got to the summit, and I'll never forget what he said to me after standing on the summit. He said, "This is the greatest experience of my life. This is my Mount Everest." And I said, "Congratulations." Hey, we went back and celebrated. And next thing you know, years later, Jim finds himself on my team down in South America on the tallest mountain in South America, Aconcagua. And we climbed that mountain, and there's a few funny stories about that trip, but we got to the summit of that, and he said, "Man, this is my Everest." And I said, "All right, congratulations, Jim. You're on the tallest point now on North America, South America." And then we ended up in Antarctica together. And we got to the summit of Mount Vincent, the Vincent Massif, and I looked at him and I said, "If you tell me this is your Everest." And hey, we had a great trip, unbelievable weather, and my goodness, I've known Jim a long time. He's a great person. I enjoy being with him in the mountains because, climbing is just part of it. It's the people you get to spend time with. It's the relationships you build. And who knew Jim and I would be connected for years and years. And then lo and behold, he got in touch with me and he said, "Greg, what do you think about Mount Everest? Do you think I can climb it?" And, Jim, what I call it setting yourself up for success. And Jim had been on so many climbs, and he'd done so much homework, and I know he's fit. So he checked all the boxes to give Everest a shot. And I said, "Jim, there's only one way we're going to find out." And I said, let's go find out if you can climb Mount Everest. And I'm on board. I'm willing to support you. And there we went. We're on Mount Everest together. And events unfolded, unfortunately that year. and what I say is, the best thing that happened was that we all got to go home to our families after that, because some people did not. And boy, he's just fantastic. I'm not sure how much I'm allowed to talk about that's in the movie, so I'm cutting. I don't know if that's a teaser or I'm cutting it short.
No, it's actually fine. Jim went into detail, and so did Steven, about the whole Avalanche experience. Okay. And prior to today, you three are actually, you and Jim are the first guys I've talked to about that experience that was, actually there. So, like you said, I think you said it best. It kind of puts everything into perspective, especially life and just in general, when something like that does occur and your focus goes from going up the mountain to being able to realize like what you have in life is like what you love, and maybe being home is maybe the best thing,
Absolutely. Boy, my heart still weeps for all the family of the fallen climbers from any year on Mount Everest. And in 2014, we lost a lot of great people on the mountain, as well as other years. But Jim was there, and he was doing it. And at the end of that expedition with Jim, and I knew him so well, I honestly think that Jim got more out of that expedition just on the family front than a lot of climbers get from standing on the summit. So I'm proud of him, and I'm happy that it turned out for him with how tight he's gotten with his family.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I appreciate that they included, because I'm sitting here in the States and I'm getting information back, but I never knew about the dialogue that had happened. I could only imagine what the dialogue was going to be between the Sherpa and the client, community. And to see that the clients, the people that are climbing, like the respect that they have and how personal, it is for the Sherpas, because these are fathers and sons and uncles, these are family members. And in a way, it is their mountain, and so for the decision to actually close it down, and I know that's not an easy decision to make when you have each climber has $150,000 to $250,000 invested in this thing. But overall, I think obviously that was the right decision to make. But to be able to see that in the documentary, personally, as a climber myself, I really appreciate getting to see that. So, and you were from apparently like a big part of that because of your title as, is it expedition leader, I guess?
That's correct. Yeah, I'm the expedition leader for International Mountain Guides on Mount Everest, and you're absolutely right. The level of respect I have, and every climber that goes to Mount Everest to visit the south side in Nepal, the level of respect that I see people have for the Nepalese people, including the Sherpa, obviously, is sky high. And the level of respect the Sherpa have for the climbers is sky high. I think there's a mutual level of respect. It's a very intense world that we're all living in, working in, and participating in. And, people call it adrenaline. People call it testing. People call it, they talk about conquering the mountain. I don't know if anybody's conquering anything over there other than, the challenge. And, whatever term you put there, it doesn't matter who you are or how many times you've climbed Mount Everest, and whether I'm up there with the climbers or I'm at base camp. When somebody stands on the summit, I'm happy. I'm so excited. And the only time I'm even happier and more excited, and everybody who's ever climbed with me knows this, is when they come walking back into base camp after doing what they've done on the mountain. And so it's fantastic. And yeah, that year it was a tough year, and I support what happened at the end of the expedition. And we're growing, and we get better every year. Everybody does.
So there's a couple of ways that I want to take this. One, I guess we could dive into actually the Sherpa community and what's going on now, because as far as I know, the mountain shut down. I've heard a couple things maybe about a Chinese team going up. I know they're doing some cleaning, but how is the Sherpa community doing in Nepal right now? And is there any way for just individuals to be able to maybe help donate or anything? Because I know that like the majority of their income does come in that March, May and June months.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you asking that, and that has been an incredible focus for the entire climbing community of Mount Everest. First and foremost, the Sherpa, the community in Nepal is actually doing pretty good in terms of the virus. They shut down in early March, and the government closed down Mount Everest to all climbers. So nobody's climbed Mount Everest in 2020 from the south side. There was a Chinese team who climbed from the north side through Tibet, but nobody's climbed Mount Everest from the south side, and the country is still locked down with no international flights. Nobody's doing anything. My community, the majority of my guys live in a valley called the Khumbu Valley. And again, we're incredibly lucky. I check in with them on a daily basis, and the virus hasn't made its way up into the valley. So health-wise, we're doing well over there. From an economics and tourism and financial income, they're taking a hit, and it's a huge hit. And like so many people here in the United States, this virus they're not leaving anybody alone, and it's hitting everybody, and it's hitting everybody's pocketbook too. So that said, the Sherpa and the climbers missed out on their, a lot of their yearly income. And so what we've done is we've set up a fundraising page, and we have it on our website, mountainguides.com. And the response has been amazing. And I'm not surprised, because the climbing community and the climbing family that has been in communication with me, they're fantastic. And they've been fantastic before this. They were fantastic when they go over there. And you know who great people are when the going gets tough. And the community has reached out and has made donations. And, we're not through this yet, and we're still taking donations, and we still want to send more support over to the community over there. And, some people say, what is that our responsibility? Well, in Nepal, they don't have unemployment, and, their fallback job is to go out and grow barley and, do the potatoes and pick up some odd jobs. So the loyalty and the work they've put in with me and for me on Mount Everest, this is an opportunity for me, for the company I work for, and for the climbing community that has shown how fantastic they are to give back, and they're doing it. And, we're going to continue doing it. So I want to thank anybody who's a climber, whether I know you or not, for doing what you've done, and to let you know, hey, we still need more, but thank you is what I like to say to those people.
And of course, I'm going to link everything below. So anybody that wants to donate, you can donate just by clicking the link right below.
Oh man, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I apologize for my ignorance for this next question because I have not been to Everest, so I can't answer this on a personal basis. But it seemed like in 2019, there were more fatalities, yet the weather was still good. So what can we do to help make Everest safer in general? I know technology has played a big part. I've been reading, I think there's like 3G or 4G going up. So there's more weather reports, better radio communications, things like that, access to helicopters. But how can we continue to give people an incredible experience on Everest, but also help mitigate the risk?
Oh, that I don't know how much time we have, but that's a great question. And there are ways. And yeah, the infamous picture from the South Summit looking towards the summit last year, I think is what most people are thinking about right now when we talk about this. And yeah, there were a lot of people up there, and unfortunately, we lost people. Again, not my company, but the community lost people on the mountain, and that's always heartbreaking. So what can we do? What can we do to mitigate more risk, make the mountain safer? You know, all these buzzwords that people like to latch onto. You know, and the first and foremost is making sure that people are prepared to go climb Mount Everest, and not allowing people to go up there who are unprepared, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, technical. You know, making sure we do a better vetting process as a community, and you know, not just, you know, I hate to say this, but not just cash somebody's check and then they get a ticket to go and attempt Mount Everest. You know, that's not the way I do it. You know, you don't get to write your check in and I give you a ticket to go and attempt the summit of Mount Everest. We're constantly evaluating and then reevaluating and communicating, you know. And going back to Jim, I had a meeting planned with Jim, his guide, and the cameraman for later that day. We never got to have that meeting because of the avalanche, but we were going to have one-on-one meetings and reevaluate where we were and what we needed to do moving forward. I do that with all my climbers and my staff, making sure they're prepared. And the word I use is making sure they're set up for success and their systems are dialed before they go on to the mountain. You want to be, you don't want to go above base camp unless you're bulletproof. I use the term bulletproof, and that's healthy inside and out and have the tools you need to be successful. The other things that, you know, we can do and would like to do is, you know, the vetting of people is huge, making sure people are prepared to go up there and qualified to go up there. You know, the other things, and we started this years ago, was getting the fixing equipment. We put ropes on the mountain and we attach a rope to the mountain. We call it fixed rope for those people who are not familiar with how we climb Mount Everest from the south side. So we bring fixing equipment up there, and we have the best guides who are Nepalese fix the mountain. And so years ago, we started flying that equipment before the season really kicked off to Camp 2. Mm-hmm. And then from there, the guides and the men and ladies who fix the mountain and carried the gear from there. The earlier we can get that up there, the more time and weather window we have to work with. And
plus you're reducing the trips through the Khumbu icefall, which I think is key.
With all that gear, you're limiting the amount of trips through the icefall by about 80. So 80 times a person has to, or a group of people have to go through that icefall gets reduced by flying that gear up there. And the helicopter pilots are the best in the world that do it. My hat is off to their job because they are so amazing. It's awesome to watch them do their work. I have a front row seat and I know them all, which is just, you know, another cherry on top of my job. So they fly that stuff up there. And then the local guides, the Sherpa, fix the mountain to the summit. And the earlier we can put that team in place to fix that mountain, the more advantage we can take of good weather to do it. So getting the rope and hardware on the mountain, putting that team in position to summit with that gear will allow for more weather windows in the month of May. You know, and the weather forecasting is getting better and has gotten better. We have more of it. So that goes into play as well. So those kinds of things are I think very important. And you know, all the great companies that work together on the mountain also goes into play. You know, what we've also started doing, and we're still getting better, of course, with this is, you know, teams communicating. There are a lot of people who want to climb Mount Everest, and there are a number of companies. And all the good companies communicate with each other on when they are planning on sending their team to the summit. And as long as we communicate and there are enough weather windows, we can avoid a situation like we had last year, which was we didn't get the mountain fixed until a little later. And then that summit window, it was a small one, and we didn't know if we were getting another one. And a lot of people ended up there. We had a team up there that same day. And, the other question, and I might be running on here, but the other question I get is, so you had a team up there. And I said, yes. What did you do? And I said, well, anybody who knew there weren't going to be quite a few people up there that day, and that didn't put protection, added manpower, added oxygen in place, they missed a lot of red flags. And those red flags, you could see them, and you needed to adjust your logistical plan long before you ended up in that situation. I'm happy to say that my team made it to the summit and back that day. No one got hurt, no frostbite, and everybody made it up and down safe and sound with all that manpower. And it didn't take us much longer than a year that we've had the summit to ourselves. I wish everybody could have the summit to themselves on Mount Everest. It's not always possible, but we've been pretty fortunate over the last 10 or so years to have a lot of days to ourselves up there.
Yeah, I know y'all at IMG run a top-notch team. I've actually heard, I don't know if these are true, reports of people that do apply for, say, IMG, for example, and you're like, well, this guy doesn't have the qualifications. And so they go and find someone that's like, hey, I can take you up the mountain. And a lot of times, from what I hear, it could be like some of those guys that are flooding. Because whenever I saw that photo, it was a turnoff for me because, like we had said earlier, climbing for me is like a real spiritual experience. And I don't want a bunch of rich people that are going to steal my oxygen tank at the top, so I don't want to climb with those type of people. But that's just me personally, yeah. So
hey, everybody has a right to test themselves. We at IMG we turn people down in terms of going to Mount Everest every year, and because they're not qualified. And unfortunately, I see those people with other companies who didn't turn them down, and I always hope for the best. And there's a part of me that feels like, oh, if I had taken them, maybe I could protect them a little more. But that's probably my ego, my pride, and my confidence in my team. However, you got to be qualified. I get on the phone with them, and they're talking to me. We talk for many months and years before we actually get on the mountain together.
Yeah, you don't want. Yeah, you can't feel that, it's like they say, you're only as strong as your weakest link, but you can't have that. I just want to throw this idea at you. I don't know if this is the way it's done, because me and my buddies, we're all, we brainstorm things and stuff like that. Yeah. But I don't know if there's an elder council per se for Everest, because I know it gets political, with Nepal, the Nepalese government, and they do want the income to come in. But somehow limiting, I know it changes, but it seems like each year the amount of permits increases. But somehow limiting that and having an elder council what y'all do, and really determining on who should climb, and then maybe having a fund available for people that necessarily they could climb, they have the physical availability to, and this may already be set up. But don't have the financial ability, so maybe a fund where people can do it for $50K instead of the $250. But I know gear and a bunch of other things come into play as well.
Oh yeah, and our programs for Mount Everest start at 49,000. So we have a climb of 49, and hey, it's a big investment to go climb Mount Everest, and it does take a lot of money, and that goes to oxygens. Excuse me.
Yeah, that's fine. I had something building in my throat too, so I'll take a shot.
Man, don't put this on there. Is that a beer?
No, this is good question. This is
that was awesome.
Iced coffee. Hey, by the way, I kept seeing those Everest beers in the shot of the documentary. Is that I guess that's a real thing, or do you have to go to Everest or?
Oh no, there's such a thing as Everest beer. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, it's made in Nepal, and it's medium at best. But you know what? After you summit Mount Everest, it tastes like gold, man. Yeah, yeah.
That's, that's awesome. Well, to wrap things up, I have a two-part question. One is, what advice do you have for the next generation of climbers, people that are maybe looking to get into climbing? Actually, let's start it with the climbers themselves. What advice do you have for the next generation of climbers, besides like the rules of like, be as safe as you can and know when to turn around? Because for me, I know the first time that I had to turn around, it's always the toughest, but I just forced myself to do it because I'm like, there eventually has to be a time where I have to turn around. And I'm glad I did, because there ended up being a thunderstorm on top if I would have been on the summit. But what advice do you have for up and coming climbers?
Get out and climb. Number one, one of the most important things a good climber will learn and do in the mountains is have the ability to turn 180 degrees and go downhill. If something's not right and you're not feeling it, or the conditions are bad, the mountain's not going anywhere. Turn around and go back downhill and get out of trouble. That'd be one of my highest suggestions to any climber out there, is have the ability to turn 180 degrees and go downhill. Next thing, is, if people are curious about getting into climbing, go to a climbing gym and take a course. I promise the instructors are fantastic, and get around people who know what they're doing. Take mountaineering courses. We have mountaineering courses on Mount Rainier, and there's been many climbers who started there and have ended up on Mount Everest with me. And reach out and get in touch with me or a climbing company and say, here's what I'd like to do, but I have no idea how to get there. And there are a lot of ways to get to where you want to go, and take the appropriate measures to learn the skills, the technical skills, and test yourself at different elevations. Don't try to eat the entire elephant in one bite. Pick it off one piece by piece, and you'll eventually get to where you want to get. And so just getting outside. I mean, here we are. The whole nation is kind of shut down, and then we all want to get back out into the mountains, and I can't wait. And so what we can do right now is we can pick up books, and we can read about the mountains, and we can learn about techniques, and we can grab a piece of rope and practice our knots and our hitches. And for an Everest climber, you can put that ladder out in the backyard and put your boots and crampons on, and you can practice going back and forth across the ladder and clipping and unclipping with your mittens on, carabiners in your ascender. All sorts of stuff we can do right now to keep our skills sharp, so that when we are allowed to get back into the mountains, we get that opportunity. My advice to young people for getting out into the mountains is go and get into the mountains, and go into the mountains with the people who know what they're doing, and ask questions and learn. And I tell you, I've been doing this for quite a long time, and I learn something new every time I go into the mountains, whether it's, how to store my spoon so it doesn't get dirt on it, or, a different way to, attach this piece of equipment. And it's just great being around guides, because, we're evolving and we're learning. And, how I learned how to climb Mount Everest and other 8,000 meter peaks is I hung out with my Sherpa guide team. And I just watched what they were doing, and I just did what they did. And I learned a lot from them. They're fantastic. They're some of my best friends in the world. And get out in the mountains, learn everything, take courses. And before you know it, you'll be like, I think I can climb Mount Everest.
And it's a great community. I just have to add that in. Like, just the people you meet are it's an incredible community. Like, I've made so many friends through it. So, and one other thing I would add is, don't be limited by your geography. I'm sitting here right now in Houston, Texas, and I still like to go out and also go to Colorado and climb. So if you live in an area that doesn't have any mountains, or no mountains even close, that's okay. I mean, you can get in your car, you can drive out there once everything starts slowing down, but don't let your geography hold you back either. So
I
I think that's
absolutely
a
couldn't
big
agree
one.
with you more. Oh man, I echo that. Way to go.
All right. Well, I appreciate your time, Greg. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm going to
My
include the
pleasure.
link for everything below. And then Accidental Climber is now streaming on video on demand, and you can watch it just by clicking the link below. Take care, guys.
Thanks, everybody.